Every man pursuing an abundant lifestyle believes the same thing, that once he hits those objectives, the woman part will take care of itself and he can finally date the woman he desires most. But unfortunately, this belief is misguided and more often than not leaves men feeling lied to and frustrated. So, in this video, I'm going to deconstruct those illusions. I'll show you how women actually select men, and then I'll break down the common myths that hold men back from having the relationships and dating life they actually want. Imagine for a moment a man who put in tremendous work in getting lean, leveling up his income, and building the kind of life other men would aspire to, who arrived at a crossroads in life where he's professionally competent but romantically dissatisfied. He just can't figure out why the woman across the table isn't captivated by his success in the way everyone promised him she would. But in the back of his mind, he still believes the six-pack and the seven-figure lifestyle business are the things women fundamentally crave in a man. But in reality, those markers are both signals for something else. Now, biologists have a term for it. It's called a proxy. And a proxy is a signal you can discern that points to a quality that's fundamentally invisible. So a man's physique doesn't make him more attractive because his abs are magical, but rather because for most of human history, a strong body was a reliable marker of health, discipline, and the ability to survive the physical world. So the body was merely a signal, and women evolved to read signals. So David Bass ran a landmark study across 37 cultures, and women on average valued a man's resources and social status more highly than men did. The usual explanation for this is one maybe you've probably heard. A woman carries the pregnancy and undergoes higher biological risk, so she evolved to consider whether a man can provide protection and resources during those years when a child is helpless. So just like a fit physique, it is merely a proxy. It's a signal that points at provisioning, at the question of whether this man can keep the child and myself alive. These markers men chase are not the trophy, because every one of them is a proxy that points at something deeper. But let's say, for the sake of argument, you hit those markers. By definition, you should be set, right? I mean, the woman should now appear and make themselves known. Isn't that so? Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. And nothing really changes automatically. If you walked into a room with everything you've built and achieved and were face to face with the most beautiful woman you've laid eyes on, you still have to approach her, have a conversation, and confirm her interest, but none of that is in the muscle or the bank account. They may get you through the door, but they don't do the heavy lifting for you. And there are studies that reveal exactly where these markers stop working too. There is a concept called the threshold model. The idea is that physical attractiveness works like a gate rather than a ranking. So below a certain minimum, almost nothing else you offer gets a fair shot. But once you're past that gate, being increasingly attractive stops doing the heavy lifting and other aspects actually come into play. And a team of researchers ran a field experiment for this where young men approached women on the street and asked for their number. These are the same men running the same exact script, with the caveat being the income they appeared to have, from high to mid to low. And lo and behold, the higher income men actually got more yeses. Who would have thought, right? But yes, status indeed moves the odds in your favor. But here's the kicker. In the same research, when a man lightly touched a woman's forearm for a second or two while he's asked for her number, the close rate went up too, independent of his income or status. So the manner with which he carried the interaction influenced the result practically on its own. So in essence, status reliably raises your baseline odds, but the encounter itself, from how you approach to how you project yourself, influences the outcome from a completely different direction. One is the starting position, but the other is the game on the field. A man with an average social status who's good at playing the social game will almost consistently beat a high status man who's clueless of its mechanics. And in hindsight, you may have even observed this dynamic before, where an objectively high status man who can't get out of his own way gets blown off for the average jerk who can't help but give women the cold shoulder. And it gets stranger because attraction isn't even fixed to the man. I mean, a significant part of it gets formed socially in real time. This is actually a well documented effect you may be familiar with, where a man immediately becomes more desirable to a woman simply because other women appear to demonstrate intentional interest in him. It's called mate choice copying, where a man who's evidently valued by women reads as higher value to other women in his proximity before they have gathered any data about his income or job or anything like that. You can see this phenomena in other facets of life too. So, if desirability can be constructed in the moment, then it was never merely about your assets. They enhance your attractiveness, sure, but they are not the full picture. And any man who thinks the picture is finished the day he checks off his ambitions and fills up his bank is going to be really disappointed. Now, the success markers are a strong position on the chessboard, but the approach, the mindset, the way you seduce a woman and talk to her, those are a separate skill. And whether we like it or not, skill often beats the score by a long shot. This is the first thing a lot of successful men tend to get backwards. Now, let's move on to the big fallacy. This is the belief that underlies everything else. Most men, if they were honest with themselves, will admit that be it the workout or the hustle, both are motivated to some extent by women, specifically unlimited access to hot women. So the body and the money is really for her and not themselves. He's aspiring to mold himself into the type of man a woman will irresistibly want, but on some level it feels like a tax, a price he pays in sweat and tears just to be granted access. So, as a consequence, a lot of men end up feeling a bit resentful or bitter about it without ever admitting it to themselves. They think, I have to become all of this just to be chosen. But here's the thing, that resentment comes from the wrong perspective. Let's just go back to the proxy for a moment. We established that a signal points to an underlying quality, like the body points to health and discipline, money points to competence, and so forth and so on. Now ask yourself, who owns the qualities that signal points to? You do, not her, but you. When you build the body, you are the one who actually reaps the benefit. The discipline that built it actually lives within your character, and it translates into other facets of life as well. So you are the source of every single stepping stone. You don't pay it up for a woman. You become it because it drastically impacts your life outside of relationships. And here's the thing you have to remember. Most relationships end. I mean, we're all betting on ourselves and her in some irrational sense. But at the end of the day, it can be taken away. And then what happens to the body or the bank account? Well, it's all yours. All of it walks out the door with you because none of that was located within the relationship. It was cultivated within yourself over a long period of time. A woman at most gets to share in it, but any benefit she receives is downstream of a choice you decide to make. So you were never truly building yourself for a woman exactly. You are elevating yourself on the signals that matter, and women tend to respond positively to that. Now, there's a fair objection to this. You might ask, doesn't this make selection sound like a raw deal for men? Women just get to choose, and men just have to perform. But no, actually, the common belief that women are the selective ones is only half the picture here. Men get to select too, and very meticulously. Men chase youth, beauty, fertility, and they pass over far more women than you might think. But the nuance here is that it's only a small minority of men in the higher echelons of society who get to enjoy such abundance. But in general, both sexes are running selection on different criteria at the same time to differing extents. Nobody's just choosing and nobody's just performing. So that resentment has to ultimately fall away because it's built on the wrong assumption. The man who understands this deeply doesn't grind with a woman at the finish line, feeling like he's paying like at all. He builds because what he's cultivating within himself is his own, and it can't be stripped away. The relationship is by no means the sole reason or reward. So, two things to carry out of here. Firstly, stop earning and start building. The man who's building for himself rather than other people is the man worth pursuing in the long run. And any resentment or bitterness obstructing your way should be let go because it's keeping you perpetually frustrated. Secondly, remember that status only sets your starting position. It buys you a better seat at the table, but it does not play the hand. So signal alone is not enough. You must also develop the skill of game to positively influence the woman you desire. Which leaves us with one question. If status only gets you into the room, then how do you develop the skill of game that actually wins the woman you want, right? What does the man who's good at the game know that the socially awkward high status man doesn't? If you want to learn more about that, you can watch this video next to learn exactly that. Take care.